Well, welcome Ariel, Mariah, and Steven. I want to thank you guys for being willing to watch this video. My goal today is to kind of work with you to give you some tips and techniques to help you be able to open up that refrigerator door, look inside and say, hey, this is what I'm going to prepare. Or go to the market and see some things, be able to pick up just a few things, and all of a sudden be able to cook a spectacular meal. One of the things that I always talk about, that you hear me always talk about, what's the difference between a restaurant meal that tastes wow, and when you come home and try to recreate it and it tastes, well, tastes just okay. I know some of you people and some of the people that you know probably go home and they get better food at home. I hear that from time to time. And oh, they can't even go out to a restaurant because their food at home is so good. Well, that is great. That is not the norm. At least in my experience in my life, I've always gone out to the restaurants and really been kind of excited by what I'm eating and what the chef has come up with. So what I'm going to do, teach you some tricks and techniques to help you do what they do. I'm going to talk about some techniques for using a skillet in order to cook your food. I'm going to talk about pan roasting your proteins and building a great sauce. I'm going to talk about pan braising, pan frying, and also pan rushed. Pan roasting is you start in this pan on the stove, and then take it to the oven. For you in New York, if you don't have a stove, you can do the whole thing on your, if you don't have an oven, you can do the whole thing on your stovetop. Now there's 3 different types of pans you could use. Note this silver stainless steel has a really nice bottom, various layers. That's a great pan. You also have something, and I think maybe you guys mostly have this, is the non-stick. Very convenient, not always great for what we're doing today, but absolutely usable, and a cast iron pan, which of course is absolutely fabulous, but takes a little extra effort. There's also a pan top or a lid that you need, and one that will go into the oven. As for any of these pans, you're really looking for, if you're going to be using that oven, you got to have something that is safe for the oven. In other words, no rubber on it, just safe in the oven. We're not going to be going to such extreme temperatures in the oven that the pan should be ruined or anything. That's pretty for sure. Now, I've got a few notes here that I'm going to refer to today because when you're talking about techniques, it's just a little bit different. I'm not going to a recipe to look up because I want you guys to be able to start using your creativity when you cook. That's what really gives you that satisfaction that I think is so fabulous. I've started by preheating my oven right before we started, just so that we can get it up to temperature so that when we need it, we have it ready to go. Okay, now, when I talk pan sauces, I am not talking mother sauces, which you always hear about, the French mother sauces, bechamel, velouté, and so on and so forth. We're not really talking about those. What we're talking about are sauces that we develop in the pan that when we are all done, we apply that. It won't end up to be maybe a very much sauce, but when we are done, we apply them to the top of that chicken, maybe a little bit to our potatoes, and it absolutely is a game changer. That's what we're wanting to get to. And the way that we do it, there's a few steps. There's a few steps along the technique that I think it's kind of important to point out, although every one of these steps can be changed and probably will be changed every time you do it. And we're not going to be using a lot of measurements, or maybe any measurements hardly at all, but you'll get the sense that, oh, I can do that. Oh, sounds really simple. So what I have today are 3 different things. I have some protein, which is a chicken breast with skin. I am using one with a rib cage attached, which normally I wouldn't do, but we don't have much in the stores right now with the coronavirus. I've got some thyme, which I always love to use, garlic, which I love to use, and shallots. Oftentimes just use onions because I don't have any shallots, but shallots are just spectacular. They're kind of a combination of an onion and a garlic in my mind. I also have oil. Now today I'm not using virgin olive oil, which I will use a lot of the time, but my temperature might be just a little bit high for that today because I'm really trying to get a good color on the skin and trying to build that fond. I'm using some wine today. If you don't have wine, not a big deal, but really nice if you do. By the way, we cook out all the alcohol. We're going to reduce it down so we just end up with this great flavor from the wine. I'm also going to be using store-bought chicken stock. I'm using this not because I would normally use this, but because it's hard for you guys to make your own stock and freeze it the way I do, because I have 2 refrigerators, so I have 2 freezers that I can put that in, and I still run out of room. But I'm going to use this, and it's a little more of a challenge because this does not have the oomph that my homemade chicken stock does. But I'm going to show you some ways to get that oomph, even though you don't have this. I'm also going to show you something that I think is great. This is something that came out of my freezer that you would have room in your freezer for. It is a leftover sauce from, it doesn't really say. I know it's very recent, but it's a leftover sauce, which I should have the date on. But this is, you may know the word demi-glace, and that is something where they reduce down veal bones or beef bones to get to the point where it's just gelatin, and it is the bomb when you're making steaks or anything like that, working with beef. It is so good. This is kind of along those lines, somewhere between a demi-glace from a chicken, and which doesn't exist, or a chicken jus, like an au jus, or just a chicken stock. But this is really way more than a chicken stock. The reason I keep this is because I try to build on past meals. So I'm making something today, but I'm going to use something from the past that is going to make this thing sing. Now, why did I end up with extra sauce? Especially doing the chicken, because what I'm going to show you today, you're probably not going to get a lot of sauce. I'm ending up with extra sauce right now because I used a method that I talked about earlier, which was pan braising. It's one of the best ways to end up with some extra sauce that you can build on and that type of thing. I'm going to put this back in the freezer. One of the things I want to warn you, whenever you're using a pan sauce from the freezer that you've done in the past, you need to take that and you need to make sure that when you put it in, you're going to be able to put it in, get that sauce boiling for a minimum of 1 minute, because even though it's in the freezer, there could be, we always want to watch for salmonella at all times, and I'm a freak. So I'm going to take that up for a minimum of boiling for 1 minute. It's actually 49 seconds is kind of the scientific time frame, but that's fine. We'll go over, could be a minute and a half or whatever, to kill any bacteria, and to make everything safe. So now we're getting ready to actually begin the process. What we're going to do is we're going to turn on our pan, and we're going to add oil. We're going to heat it up. Then we're going to add oil. Okay, we're going to begin heating it up. Now, as that pan heats up, I'm going to be adding this oil. This is a tri-blend that I get from Costco, which I really think is good. It has 3 different oils in it. A third of it's canola, a third of it's, I'm not sure of the others right now. But I want that oil to become really, really nice and hot. The reason I want that is because I want this chicken breast to get nice and beautifully brown. I want there to be a lot of looks on that. I want to get it nice and brown. I'm not really even trying to cook it right now. I'm just trying to get that as pretty as I can and end up with the fond on the bottom of the pan. Now, fond, what is that? Fond is the sticky bits that you end up with at the bottom of your pan, and that is where so much of this flavor is going to come from. Once we get the fond going, we're going to take out that chicken and we're going to add a few other things, like we might add our shallots. We'll add our shallots in a little bit of oil. We're going to try to get the shallots kind of browned up, translucent, and then what we're going to do is we're going to begin the process of building. Now you can do this before you do your cooking in the oven, some of it, or you can do it afterwards, or you can do it in combination. It's just kind of a free flow thing. I'm going to do it a little bit in combination today. As far as I'm concerned, can you do this wrong? Not really. You can do it where it doesn't work out as well, but it's really, you're gonna be fine. I'm gonna use garlic. Now, where can you go wrong in garlic? Garlic you can burn. So if I cut this finely and put it all over, the chances of getting that burned potentially is there. You don't really want burned garlic. If the pan is overly hot, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get this to burn up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it whole garlics, and I'm going to be putting it in right before I throw it in the oven. And that type of thing. Cook that meat, get it to 165, because again, I'm going for the chicken breast. And actually I'm going to cook it higher because I've got that bone in, and I'm going to really check it. I'm also going to use probes today and put it in the oven. I could take it out and get the temperature on it, but I love having a probe in the oven where it tells me the whole cooking process and we're all good to go. So I'm gonna call time out for a second, get prepared, and then come back.